Hey, welcome guys. This video is going to be about doing close readings of texts and just some aspects of poetry. You've got some supplemental videos, YouTube videos that go into great detail about aspects and elements of poetry, but I'm going to highlight a few other things as well regarding sort of the structure and form of poetry. So first of all, I want to look at this issue of close reading. So what do we mean by doing a close reading of a text? Well, first of all, it's close, right? Okay, so imagine close has to do with, proximity, how near you are to something, getting right up close to it. Okay, proximity, detail, and analysis. Okay, so this means getting into the nitty-gritty of the textual features. Okay, sorry. So it could be things like word choice, which we can also call diction. It could be the tone and the style. Maybe we're dealing with genre. We're dealing with what type of text is it? I mean, is it a poem? Is it an essay? Maybe it's a news article, etc. All of those things, depending on what type of text it is, these other things may be influenced by that. Depending on what genre it is, these other things may be influenced by that. We want to think about the author. We want to think about the context it was written. Okay, that could be the time period. That could be the place it was written, etc. All of these things are going to enable us to get close into the text. Okay, genre, word choice, the tone, the style, what type of text it is, who's the author. Okay, we can think about it in two ways as well. When we're thinking about dividing up a text, every text is going to have the form and the content. The form is the things like the tone and the style, and the genre can be part of the form. The form is how ideas are communicated. Okay, so this is the how. It's in terms of the method. Do they choose to do it in a poem? Okay, what kind of poem? Do they do haiku? Very short Japanese poem? Do they do a sonnet? Shakespeare style? Like how? What type of text do they choose to use? And within even a poem, there are many different kinds of poems and different kinds of types of text. Okay, so the form is how they communicate. The content is what they communicate. So the how and the what is communicated, because the content is about the message, the theme, the main point of a text. And we're going to see that there is a connection between the form and the content. Okay, so what we want to look for, we want to look for a relationship between the form and the content. If we look at specific words that they use, or perhaps things like the symbols, symbolism, imagery, things like that. Well, if I say, you know, her hair was black as a raven's wing. Okay, I've chosen a specific kind of simile here. Okay, so because also, as we were learning before about figures of speech, right? Figurative language and different language techniques, that's going to be part of the text as well to do a close reading. Well, here I've got a simile, and I'm comparing, you know, this lady's hair to a raven's wing due to the blackness of it. So in one sense, what am I saying? I'm comparing it to really dark black in one sense. Okay? But a raven is a bird that's connected to darkness and death, because they eat dead bodies. They are what we call a carrion eater. Carrion means dead flesh. Well, you know, I'm comparing getting this really, really dark black in the comparison of this particular choice of this simile. Well, it's going to have other connections here because of the associations that come with the particular bird that I've chosen, a raven. There's a darkness, there's sort of a mysterious and dangerous kind of element to this particular comparison. Okay, so we're going to think about things like in word choice, for example, we might think about things like the connotation of a word. So what are your associations with that word? Ravens are associated with death. And then there's denotation, which is just the dictionary definition of a word. Okay, what does the word just literally mean? Or what are some associations? Things that could be cultural, right? Depending on the time and place. So for example, in some cultures we wear black, again going back to our raven and the death connotation with the color black. Well, black is a funeral color often in Western cultures. It's what you wear at a funeral. Well, I've been told by my Chinese students, though, they wear white at a funeral. And I don't believe so in Korea. Korea, they wear black. But in China, they wear white. Well, we need to know that kind of thing. We need to know some of that context, like who wrote it, where did they write it, to which audience did they write it. So audience is another factor, right? When did the author live? What was their background a little bit? Because if I come from, say, a Chinese perspective and I read a story with that cultural filter on, I don't want to put that cultural filter on a text that doesn't know about that cultural filter and isn't trying to communicate to us through that particular filter, or through that particular, what we would call a world view. Okay, so in a little bit, we need to be a little bit aware of sort of other worldviews out there that authors may be coming from. We want to have an awareness of that, okay, their perspective. And so, so yeah, trying some crazy stuff here. Guess I pressed the button. So, okay, so we want to be a little bit aware of the background and their perspectives. In general, we can divide up thinking about I'll try to draw my personal a little bit nicer here. We want to think that there are three aspects, or three categories to think about as we study any given text that's good to know about. It's good to have in your mind. Okay. There's the author. Obviously, they're the creator of the piece of art or the text that they're dealing with. There's the text itself that they've produced. But then there's us. Okay. And we are the audience. Let's get a different third color here. Okay. Then there's the audience. So the author, we might want to know some things that we mentioned before, the time and place that they wrote, their maybe cultural perspective, worldview. We might want to know a bit about their biography and experiences, because that might be shedding light on the text, their particular personal experiences. What do they value? What are their beliefs? Okay, so sometimes it will help to go into more detail and get a little bit of the author's background. Okay, what language did they write in? That's another important aspect. So if we read Shakespeare, we got to know a little bit about Shakespeare. It was 400 years ago in England. We got to know what they believed, what was life like in that time period. Okay, then there's the text itself, which has those internal elements, internal language and features. So like we listed above, right? The symbolism and the diction and all of those aspects that are inside this text. And then there's us, the audience. We got to think about, our perspective. We're reading these texts with our sort of different glasses on, and we're viewing the text, sometimes through a filter. Okay? So we have to think about time and distance from the text, from our perspective, and then our worldview, our biases, and factor that in. So in the next video, we'll look a little bit more at features of the text in terms of poems, like what we call a line and a stanza, and other features of the poem.